Good morning, my crafty friends. So today I wanted to share with you a little ATC that I'm going to make using the 70 micron thick metal tape. As you know, it's much more sturdy than the 30 micron tape, and you use it very differently. So we're going to use a stencil, and there's my little ATC. And for those of you who don't know what an ATC is, it's an artist trading card. Anyway, so let's get cracking. So as you can see, the ATC is quite small and the stencil is quite big. I'm not going to use the whole stencil because it's not going to fit. You can see I want to use this flower, so I'm only going to use part of the flower. But the one thing I wanted to mention to you is whenever I do an ATC, I never do my pattern right to the edge. I usually leave a little gap of about 2 or 3 millimeters. That is just so that the foil can stick really well on the edges. So I'm going to work with this, and also once again I'm not going to go right to the edge. Can you see there's a little gap here, and this is my edge, and about 2 or 3 millimeters from that I'm going to make a mark and use my stencil. So this one is going to be very quick because I don't want to fill the back. So we are going to trace our stencil. Onto our thick tape. Now, if you're very nervous about slipping with your stencil, then obviously you can tape it down with a little bit of masking tape or washi tape, but you know me, just want to get going. Okay. Okay, and then here in the middle. Right, so you can see I've drawn my pattern using the stencil, and here you can see the little edge that I've left. I haven't gone right to the edge of the tape. Okay, so now I want to give it a little bit of depth, but not too much. Using a piece of felt, I'm going to turn it upside down, and you can see your pattern shows through quite well. And then using our paper stamp, we're going to rub it gently inside the lines. Just gently. Inside the lines. So there you can see, and you can notice it's starting to raise. It's very important that between working with your paper stamp on the back, that you go back and work it from the front to flatten all around your pattern. Okay, so now I'm on the front, flattening all around the pattern. And here I slipped a little bit. So using the paper stamp, you can sometimes, this is not a very good paper stamp, I must tell you. It's quite a soft one. You can see it's bendable, which I don't really like. So I'm using my old one, my Old Faithful. I'm trying to get that line away, but I'm not going to be perfectly successful. I will show you now what I'm talking about. So just going around everything. Okay, so you can see there, I slipped and made a little mark. Everything is fixable. All I'm going to do is I am going to actually scribble the background so that it looks like it was part of the plan. Now you can see I'm not raising the pattern very high, you know, high relief. You've got to fill it from the back with a bit of beeswax or something. I've really done it quite gently, not high at all. And now I'm working my technique, my scribble technique, to cover my mistake where I slipped. And you can see that I'm working in lines towards my finger. So I'm using my finger to guide me so that I don't go too far. And here, I didn't flatten that well enough. And here, I also didn't flatten this well enough. Just use your paper pencil or your paper stump, and you can flatten it nicely. And there. So remember, whenever you're working on the right side of your tape, you're working on your flat surface. And whenever you are working on the wrong side of the tape, you're using your piece of felt. You know, if you don't have a piece of felt, really just a fairly soft cloth works just as well. Just one layer on a hard surface when you're working with it. Put your soft cloth on the hard surface. Okay. And you can see that I'm generally keeping my tool in the same position, but I'm moving the design around. You will find your comfortable zone, and then you do that. Much easier than trying to move your arm like this to technique. And here we go. How lovely does that look? And I think the lesson here is that when you think you've made a mistake, everything's fixable, or you can rescue it, or you can technique it like I've done to hide the line where I slipped. Whatever the situation may be, you can do something with it. So now you can see the stencil didn't go right to the corners there. I am going to freehand draw it to the corners. And here. And here. Once again, turning the design. And this one didn't draw very well. Can you see that line? Maybe I can freehand it. There you go. How lovely is that? So I think that's finished. But now for the background, I want to use another stencil and show you a cool trick. Because a lot of you girls have asked me, sorry, not only girls, a lot of you gentlemen and ladies have asked me how I technique my backgrounds. So I just want to show you this one. One of my favorite stencils is this, and I thought it's in line with this mandala flower. We're going to use these flowers in the background. And I like to use a very small ball tool or pewter art tool, and holding the stencil very firmly, we are just going to scribble the pattern in. And once again, you can see that I have allowed the stencil, the pattern, to go off the tape. I kind of like things that go off the sides. And it's always good to try new things, especially if you're used to only lining things in the middle or having everything perfect. Just practice going off the sides of your project. It kind of gives you a bit of freedom and, you know, to try new things. So here we go again. Can you see? I'm going off the side there. And so just be careful when you're doing your second stencil not to squish your design of your first one. Because remember, the first one is a little bit of high relief. And here. The other thing to take note of is that my little piece of 70 micron metal tape is always slightly bigger than the project that I'm working on. So it's bigger than the ATC. I never cut things exact. It's very difficult to line them up if you do that. And then there's little leaves. So we'll line up our leaves here. And just to make the leaves stand out a bit more, I'm actually going to do some leaf lines, some leaf veins, if you know what I mean. Okay, and maybe another leaf there. Once again, making sure that I don't squish my hard work. And here we go. And perhaps something in that corner there. What do you think? A little bit of a flower there. So these stencils are really nice to use, but don't go for a really intricate stencil. I'll show you what I mean. This stencil has a lot of areas cut out and it's very difficult to use compared to the stencil. So don't choose a stencil like this to do your background. Okay, so now you can see what I've done. Look at my lovely leaf design. Looks so cute, don't you think? And yeah, I think that's done. So if you look carefully over there, there's a slight dent. Can you see that? I'm just going to go back with our paper stump and gently smooth that. And then take a look if there's any other dents. I think I'm just going to smooth them all a little bit. Not too much. And there you go. And I think for some interest, perhaps the center of the flower there, from the back, on a hard surface, not on the soft surface. Adds a slight touch. So what do you think of that? Now, the thing is, when you've done a little bit of high relief, even though this is not very high, you have to fill the back. And this is a little trick that I've learned because beeswax is really expensive. And the thing about beeswax that is amazing, though, is that it dries immediately. Whereas if you're going to use glue or texture paste or paste, modeling paste, it takes a while to dry. But anyway, I'm going to peel the backing off, but not all the way, just to expose this area. And sorry, I want to push it back on there because I want my tape to be flat. That's better. Okay, I want the tape. Oh, There, not pulling it all the way off, and there it went. Okay, I'm trying to get my tape to be flat, and as you can see, it's buckling a bit. There you go, a little bit flatter. And we're going to use some ordinary craft glue or wood glue. And this is the reason I didn't want to remove everything. And we're filling the back, just the areas that we've raised. Now my nozzle's quite big here. It's a bit difficult to do it neatly. That's okay. I'll show you a trick. And as I'm doing this, I realized I forgot to do a section that was meant to be techniqued. I'll show you now. Okay, so using a toothpick, we just move it into the areas. The thing that you must remember is that sorry, there seems to be a hair in here. I don't know where that came from. Okay. The wood glue or the craft glue kind of shrinks a little bit when it dries, so just be aware of that. Don't overfill these because it's very difficult to keep within the lines, but there's always a chance that you may have to refill it once it's dry. Okay. Here. That one I put a bit too much in. Give it to there. Give him a little dollop more here. I overfilled the one petal. Here. And here. The other bonus is that the beeswax is so much easier to use. You know, you just pour it in and it self-levels, where this doesn't really. Okay, that'll do. I'll lift it up so you can see. And over there, you can see that section I didn't technique. But once this is dry, I will go back and sort that out. So tune in for part 2, because I would really like to finish this specific ATC with you. I'm going to let the glue dry until it's translucent. Depending on the glue you're using, sometimes it kind of goes like a yellowy tinge. It must be properly dry before we continue. So that can take anything from a couple of hours, depending on how hot it is, to overnight. So watch out for part 2. Take care and have an awesome day.